Hi there, beautiful souls. Welcome back, or welcome to The Hawk and I. My name is Lana Zielinski, and I work in the spirit dimensions. As always, in all my videos, simply take what resonates, and you're welcome to leave the rest right here. There are significant differences between the physical world and the spirit dimensions. We're physical, they're non-physical. They are in a different vibration than we are in the physical world. Things sound, look, and feel very different in the spirit dimensions versus the physical world. And a lot of those differences can make people a little bit uneasy, especially when it comes to how the spirit dimensions sound. Quite often, when us humans hear spirit, we can have a little bit of fear because it does sound very different when spirit tries to communicate with us here in the physical world. I have spent many years tuning my tuner. That's what I call my physical world ears. Tuning my tuner like a dial to be able to hear clearly, as clear as possible as I can, into the spirit dimensions. Now, what's really interesting for me is when I tune into the dimensions that the angelics are in, it sounds very different than the dimensions where the people who have passed are hanging out. It has a very different sound and a very different vibration when you tune into it. Now, many mediums, when they are channeling, when they are listening in, or when they're receiving information from the spirit dimensions, sometimes that information comes in many different forms, even within a minute. So I can be channeling a loved one from the spirit dimensions, and it may start off as just a knowing download. I'm knowing it, or I'm seeing it. I'm seeing into the spirit dimensions. And then it may shift into I'm hearing into the spirit dimensions. And when it shifts into that hearing into the spirit dimensions, quite often it sounds really staticky. And I have to kind of work on my tuner in finding that sweet spot when I'm channeling that spirit to be able to hear them as clear as possible. Which is why quite often when mediums are channeling, some things may sound similar, especially when it comes to names. So a medium may be channeling a name, and the name may sound like Dawn. I'm hearing the name Dawn, for example, but the name is actually Dan. You see how that's very, very close and very, very similar. And the reasons that there can be that little bit of discrepancy is because of the sound is very different in the spirit dimensions. Words that are very similar or very close can sound different when they're trying to communicate with us who they are. Now, the name should never be way different. Like, if I'm hearing, or if I'm saying Sam, but the name is Kelly, that's two very, very different sounds. It's the similar sounds for me that are really important. If it sounds very, very similar, being able to tune in to be able to hear like that is a practice for a lot of mediums that they have developed over a long period of time, being able to hear that. Now, spirit does communicate with all of us in many different ways. And again, the sound is very different. When you think about, if you've ever heard something from the spirit dimensions, it may sound like an echo, or it may sound far away. A lot of people who hear spirit state that their ears buzz or ring when spirit's trying to make a connection. A lot of my mentoring students have that description when we're working on developing their connection to the spirit dimensions. Their ears will buzz, or they'll hear a vibration as the spirit dimensions are coming in closer to give you that sound. The reason for that, again, is they're in a different vibration. They're not far away per se, but they're in a different vibration. They're in a different dimension, and those dimensions sound and feel very different. The other thing is spirit does try really hard to figure out what works for us as well when we're receiving that information. Now, when spirit communicates quite often through technology. If you've ever watched a video, perhaps one of your own videos that you were just recording, or somebody else's video, and there's all of a sudden this background noise that there's no reason for, like there was no technology glitches or there was nothing in the background making that noise at the time, quite often that's the pitch of spirit. Their pitch will often be picked up on recording devices. Our ears are only trained to hear in certain pitches, and if you don't develop the extra senses, the spiritual senses, to be able to tap in, quite often we don't hear them. Spirit is always around us. There's always that noise around us, and our ears just aren't used to hearing into that dimension. Another very interesting thing with hearing is, if you've ever listened to some, I'll use the word some spirit boxes that pick up spirit activity, there's that distortion that comes through with that box. The spirit box is picking up the vibration from a different dimension. So quite often it does have that distorted sound. Now, I've spent a number of years learning how to mute out that muffled sound, learning how to hear around it or through it, and just being able to fine tune in deeper and deeper. And I think that skill is something that I'm always working on, continuing to develop more and more and more, being able to hear deeper and deeper into the spirit dimensions. It's the same thing with seeing into the spirit dimensions. When I first started connecting visually with seeing into the spirit dimensions, they looked very different. It's non-physical, right? So you don't have a floor or ceiling. You don't have those physical things. And when spirit shows themselves to me, they show themselves to me as they were when they were here in that lifetime. Because now they don't have that physical body. So there's a very, very different visual appearance to things over in the spirit dimensions. It almost looks, what's the best word that I'm looking for here? Things look almost transparent or like outlines for me when I see into the spirit dimensions, because they're trying to project an image to me that I will understand in the physical world, that I can translate from the spirit dimensions. It's the same thing with that knowing. When they send in the messages of that knowing, just being able to receive that download, that knowing, that takes some development to be able to tap in, set your tuner into just simply allowing the information to come through. And the information comes through as that knowing. I think one of the greatest things with the spirit dimensions for me is being able to set that tuner, to be able to tap in and just tune a little bit deeper every single time. And I think with every single reading, and I've been reading for quite a while, you guys, but with every single reading that I've done, I go in with that just with that open mind, that allowing space of allowing myself to work in the spirit dimensions and grow within the spirit dimensions to get a deeper understanding of how I work in there and how they're going to work with me. And every single person that connects with the spirit dimensions works very differently and can hear very differently, because they're all setting their tuners in their own way. They're all tapping in to their own way. One of the greatest things that you need to be able to kind of lean into is just simply trusting and allowing that communication to flow without getting into it. I don't get into it. I don't bring my physical world ears with me when I listen into the spirit dimensions. I leave my physical world ears here, and I tap in with my spiritual tuner to be able to tune that dial into hearing them more clear. When we hear spirit, quite often there is that instant fear. Many people don't like to hear or to see spirit. I'm good with it all, whether I'm seeing, hearing, or knowing, or feeling. I'm good with it all. Bring it on. But a lot of people do have that sudden fear when they hear or when they see, and I think that that's okay. I think we all connect in very different ways, and I think that's perfectly okay. But spirit wants to connect with us, and for the most part we do want to hear from our loved ones or from the angelics, but we do get a little nervous when we start to hear and see things, and with that fear it kind of severs that connection for us when we're receiving information or when we're hearing information from the spirit dimensions. That kind of fear kind of breaks that the telephone line, if you will. It's similar to a long distance telephone line. So if you're hearing spirit and if you're seeing spirit, and this is something that you want to further develop, just practice setting your tuner, setting your dial into allowing it to be more clear. I also spend a lot of time with spirit asking. I will ask them to turn it up. Can you turn that volume up so I can hear it clear? Can you turn it down? It's a little bit loud, because sometimes we're figuring out how we're working too. All of a sudden spirit will be like, wah, and I'll be like, turn that down. And I'll be like, can you turn that up? Can you try and clear that up? And I'll work on my own spiritual hearing, into hearing what they're trying to communicate with me. I do hope this little video on what the spirit dimensions sound like, and sometimes what they look like, and how I work with them, brought you a little bit more knowledge. I hope you enjoyed your time with me here on the channel. As always, love, light, blessings, and a spirit guided day.